Sometime later, when the king of the people of Ammon died, his son Hanun became king in his place. David said, I will show grace to Hanun, the son of Nahash, as his father showed grace to me. So David sent his servants to pass a message of comfort concerning his father. David's servants entered the territory of the people of Ammon, but the leaders of the people of Ammon said to Hanun their lord, Do you really think David is honoring your father by sending people to comfort you? Hasn't David actually sent his servants to you in order to look over the city over, reconnoiter it, and overthrow it? So Hanun took David's servants, shaved off their beards, cut off their clothes halfway up at their buttocks, and sent them away. On hearing how they had been treated, David sent a delegation to meet them, because the men had been deeply humiliated. The king said, Stay in Jericho until your beards have grown back, and then return. Aware that they were utterly abhorrent to David, the people of Ammon sent and hired 20,000 Aram foot soldiers from Beeth Rakov and Sovah. The king of Maacah, with 1,000 men and 12,000 soldiers from Tov. When David heard of it, he sent Joab. The entire army, trained soldiers. The army of Ammon came out and went into battle formation at the entrance of the city gate. The men of Ammon took Zobah and Rahov. The men of Tov and Maacah were by themselves in the open countryside. When Joab saw that he would be fighting on two fronts, ahead and behind, he chose the best troops of Israel to deploy against Aram, while the rest of the army he put under the command of Avishai, his brother, to deploy against the army of Ammon. He said, If Ammon is too strong for me, you help me. But if the army of Ammon is too strong for you, then I will come help you. Take courage. Let's be strong for the sake of our people and the cities of our God. May Adonai do what seems good to him. And Joab and the people with him went to battle Aram, and they fled before him. When the people of Aram saw that Aram had fled, they likewise fled before Avishai and retreated into the city. Joab returned from the people of Ammon and went to Jerusalem. When Aram saw that Israel had gotten the better of them, they gathered themselves together. Hadadezer sent and brought out the people of Aram who lived beyond the Euphrates River. They came to Helam with Shovach, the commander of Hadadezer's army, at their head. It was reported to David, so he gathered all Israel together, crossed the Jordan, and came to Helam. Aram deployed themselves against David and fought him, but Aram fled before Israel. David killed 700 chariot drivers and 40,000 horsemen from Aram, and he struck Sovach, the commander of their army, so that he died there. When all of Hadadezer's vassal kings saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they made peace with Israel and became their subjects. So Aram was afraid to help the people of Ammon anymore. In the spring, at that time when kings go out to war, David sent Joab, his servant, who was with him and all Israel. They ravaged the people of Ammon and laid siege to Rabbah. But David stayed in Jerusalem. Once, after his afternoon nap, David got up from his bed and went strolling on the roof of the king's palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing who was very beautiful. David made inquiries about the woman and was told that it was Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. David sent messengers to get her, and she came to him, and he went to bed with her, for she had been purified from her uncleanness. And she returned to her house. The woman conceived, and she sent a message to David, I am pregnant. David sent this order to Joab, Send me Uriah the Hittite. Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah had come to him, David asked him how Joab was doing, how the people were feeling, and how the war was going. And David said to Uriah, Go down to your house and wash your feet. Uriah left king's place and followed by a present of food from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's palace with all the servants of the Lord and didn't go down to his house. When they told David Uriah didn't go down to his house, David said to Uriah, "Haven't you just arrived from a journey? Why don't you go down to your house?" Uriah answered David, "The ark, Israel and Yehudah stays in tents, and my lord Yoav, the servants of my lords, are camping in the countryside. Should I go into my house and eat and drink and go to bed with my wife? Surely as you live, I will not do such a thing." David said to Uriah, "Stay here today also. Tomorrow I will let you leave." So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem the day and the following day. David summoned him, ate and drank with him, and got him drunk. But in the evening he went out and lay on his bed with his Lord's servants and did not go down to his house. In the morning David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In the letter he wrote, "Put Uriah on the front lines of the fiercest fighting. Then pull back from him so that he will be wounded and killed." So while Joab had the city under siege, he assigned Uriah to the place where he knew the toughest defenders were. The men of the city went out and fought Joab. A number of people fell, including some of David's servants, with Uriah the Hittite among the dead. Joab sent messengers to David reporting all the news concerning the war, and he instructed the messenger, "When you have finished telling the king all the news about the war, he may become angry and ask you, 'Why did you get so close to the city to fight? Didn't you know they would shoot from the wall? Didn't you think about the person who struck Abimelech, the son of Yerushet, that the woman threw an upper millstone down on him from the wall, so that he died in Tavetz? Why did you go so near to the wall? If he says this to him, your servant Uriah is dead also." So the messengers left and arrived and told David all that Joab had sent him to say. The messenger said to David, "The men were overpowering us and came out after us into the countryside, but we chased them back all the way to the entrance of the city gate. The archers shot at your servants from the wall. Some of the king's servants are dead. Also, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead." David said to the messenger, "Tell Joab, don't let this matter get you down. The sword devours in one way or another. Intensify your battle and against the city and overthrow it, and encourage him." When the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she mourned her husband. When the mourning was over, David sent and took her home to his place. She became his wife and bore him a son. But Adonai saw that what David had done as evil. Adonai sent Natan to David. He came and said to him, "In a certain city there was two men, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had vast flocks and herds. The poor man had nothing except for one little lamb, which he had bought and reared. It had grown up with him and his children. It ate from his place, drank from his cup, lay on his chest. It was like a daughter to him. One day a traveler visited the rich man, and instead of picking an animal from his own flock or herd to cook for his visitor, he took the poor man's lamb and cooked it for the man who came to him. David exploded with anger against the man and said to Natan, 'As Adonai lives, the man who did this deserves to die. For doing such a thing, he has to pay back 4 times the value of the lamb, and also because he has no pity.' Natan said to David, 'You are that man. Here is what Adonai, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel. I rescued you from the power of Shaul. I gave you your master's house and your master's wives to embrace. I gave you the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah. And if that had been too little, I would have added you a lot more. So why have you shown such contempt for the word of Adonai and done what I see as evil? You murdered Uriah the Hittite with a sword and took his wife as your own wife. You put him to death with the sword and the people of Ammon. Now therefore the sword will never leave your house, because you have shown contempt for me and taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite as your own wife. Here is what Adonai says. I will generate evil against you out of your own household. I will take your wives before your very eyes and give them to your neighbor. He will go to bed with your wives, and everyone will know about it. For you did it secretly, but I will do this before all Israel in broad daylight. David said to Nathan, I have sinned against Adonai. Nathan said to David, Adonai also has taken away your sin. You will not die. However, because by this act you have so greatly blasphemed Adonai, the child born to you must die. Then Nathan returned to his house. Adonai struck the child that Uriah the wife had borne to David, and it became very ill. David prayed to God on behalf of the child. David fasted, then came and lay all night on the ground. The court officials got up and stood next to him, trying to get him off the ground, but he refused, and he wouldn't eat food with them. On the seventh day, the child died. The servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, because they said, while the child was alive, we spoke to him and he didn't listen to us. If we tell him how the child is dead, he may do himself some harm. But when David saw his servants whispering to each other, he suspected that the child was dead. David asked his servants, Is the child dead? And they answered, He is dead. Then David got up off the ground, washed and anointed himself, and changed his clothes. He went out of the house of Adonai and worshipped. Then he went to his own palace, and when asked for food, they served it to him, and he ate. His servants asked him, What are you doing? You fasted and wept for the child while he was alive, but now the child is dead. You get up and eat food? He answered, While the child was still alive, I fasted and wept because I thought maybe Adonai will show me his grace to me and let the child live. But now that he's dead, why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him, but he will not return to me. David comforted his wife Bathsheba, came to her and went to bed with her. She gave birth to a son and named him Shlomo. Adonai loved him and sent through Nathan the prophet to give him the name Yediah, loved by God, for Adonai's sake. Joab fought against Rabbah, the people of Ammon, and took the royal city. Joab sent people to David with this message, I have fought against Rabbah and captured its water supply. Therefore, assemble the rest of the people, lay siege to the city, and capture it. Otherwise, I will capture the city, and it will be named after me. David assembled all the people, went to Rabbah, fought against and captured it. He took the crown of Machem's head. It weighed 66 pounds, with its gold and precious stones, and it was placed on David's head. He carried off great quantities of spoil from the city. In addition, he expelled the people who were in it and set them to work with saws, iron harrows, and iron axes, or had them cross over to work as in the brick factory. This is what he did to all the cities of the people of Ammon. Then David and all the people returned to Jerusalem.